Good afternoon, everyone. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดี
สวัสดีค่ะ so hope that you have already signed in นะคะ and you can hear me loud and clear ได้ยินนะคะสวัสดีทุกคนค่ะนะคะ so welcome to our class number 4 happy Chinese New Year ค่ะ thank you and happy Chinese New Year to all of you as well. So before we get started, let me check whether you all have signed in to the attendance. If not, then I can remind you to do so นะคะคุณยุนมิมิคุณธนากรนะคะคุณจุธาวัฒน์ค่ะคุณไดเลนเจสสิก้าภาสการนะคะคุณดลยานะคะดลยานะคะวิภาวีค่ะคุณแพรวค่ะคุณชเนติค่ะคุณเฮเลอร์คุณออร์ซี่คุณพันนวิทย์นะคะ and then คุณจินจุธานะคะ you have not signed into the class so please do so ค่ะ Alright, hope that you all are in the process of signing in, okay? คุณพันนวิทย์ค่ะอยู่ไหมคะคุณพันนวิทย์ค่ะ and then คุณธนากรนะคะ don't forget to sign in, okay? So today is Chinese New Year. So what I want to do is I want to give you something at the end of the session, but we have to give promise to each other. So today, may I ask for at least นะคะ 5. Okay, so today is Chinese New Year. So what I would like to do is I want to give you something at the end of the session. But what I want from you is today, altogether, may I have 500 comments in the chat, and all students must respond, meaning must chat in this meeting. Okay. So if we can do that, I mean, all together as a class, okay, if we have at least 500 comments, and if all students chat in this, meeting, then towards the end of the session, I have something to give you on the occasion of Chinese New Year. So RC, happy Chinese New Year. Don't forget to sign into the attendance. All right, so wish you good luck and all the best for all of you, all right? So will you promise to give me 500 comments and all of you must chat, so it could be anything, it could be stickers, it could be emoji, it could be yes, no, it could be questions, it could be anything, right? So that would be, no particular reason. For this morning, they have 800. Oh, you want to make it 800? Thank you, Kun Supawit. So you want to have more than the 500 or less than the 500? That's negotiable. But in the morning, they have 800. The morning section, they have 800. So how many comments you want to bet? Kun Thanakorn, how many comments you want to bet? If you want to beat the morning session, and it has to be more than 800. Okay, we will have 801, all right? 1,000, all right? Oh, let's go, all right? So it could be anything, 1,000, all right? All right, it could be anything, you can send emoji, you can say hi, you can whatever, we can talk all day, all right? So it's 1,800, whatever. We can do this, all right? So let's start today, I will go slow. I promise you I will go slow. And there will be only 8 transactions that I will talk about today. Only 8. 8. This is not 8. So there will be only 8 transactions that I will talk about today. So I'll go slow. It's the basic that you have to know. So today I will talk about debit and credit. Right? I'll make sure that you understand that debit and credit. You can always ask questions. And whenever I ask you questions, please respond. Okay? So you can respond in short, like for example, if I said yes or no, do you agree? It could be like Y for yes and N for no, right? So it could be respond in short. Ready? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. We have the morning session to beat. So what I would do is, today I will talk about the accounting cycle and what do we mean by this accounting cycle. So let me explain to you the term accounting cycle. Okay, let me talk about the term accounting cycle. So basically, this is a list of steps. What are the things that you have to do in order to have the financial statements, right? So last time you get to see the financial statements, right? And today we will then talk about the behind the scene, right? The making of the financial statements. So over here, there are a lot of steps, okay? There are a lot of steps. Okay, we have a lot of steps. But for today, I will only talk about 2 steps. Okay, together. Today, I will talk about 2 steps only. Okay, and then for the rest of the steps, that will be for next class. Okay, only 2 steps today, right? So that you have the solid fundamentals. Okay, so today I will address the journalizing of transaction and the posting of transaction. Only these 2. Okay, only the 2. Only the 2. All right. Now, what are the things that I would talk about today? Right? I will talk about double entry accounting system. Okay, I will talk about the term double entry accounting system. I will talk about the relationship of the accounts with the equity, right? Relationship of the accounts with the equity. Okay. And then I will talk about the basic accounting books. There are actually 2 accounting books. I will talk about one and then I will talk about another. So I'll go slow on this accounting book. Okay. And what else that I would talk about? I will talk about chart of accounts, right? Type of the accounts, and then how do we assign the account numbers. So these are the things that I would talk about today. Okay, so let's outline the things that I will talk about today. I will talk about debit and credit. I'll talk about accounting books. I'll talk about the example of transactions. So altogether, it will be only 8 transactions that I will talk today. Okay, so if you don't follow, please ask. Okay, I'm sure to respond. Okay, so all right, let's get started. Now, let me get started by asking you to help me, right? Asking you to help me determine the balance of cash, all right? So could you please help me determine the balance of cash? Let's starting out with this first, first transaction. This first transaction occurred on Jan the 1st of year 2000X1, meaning year 1, right? The company issued, meaning sale, the shares to the investor, right? So here it said the company issued share capital for cash of 1.5 million. So what would be the impact on cash balance? Okay, so if you issue the shares to the investor for 1.5 million, so what do you think will be the impact on cash? Would cash be increasing or decreasing, plus or minus, and for how much, right? So from this first transaction, what happened to the cash balance, right? What happened to the cash balance? Would it be increasing, meaning plus, right? Plus, or would it be decreasing? What do you think? Okay, So over here, from your analysis, you said, John, I think it would be increasing, right? And the amount of the increase is 1.5 million. Okay, so that's what you have analyzed. Agree on that? Everyone, yes? So hope that you do agree with me on this, that the cash balance will be increasing. Okay, the cash balance will be increasing for 1.5 million. Okay, you do agree. Next, let me ask you for help on the second one, right? On the second one. So on the second one, on Feb the 1st of the very same year, year one, the company borrowed 5-year bank loan for 1 million, right? So the company borrow money, and the interest rate is charged at 6% rate per year, and it will be payable every January 31st, right? And again, I want you to analyze the impact on the cash balance. If you borrow money, what happened to the cash balance? What do you think? Cash is increasing or decreasing, and by how much? Increase, decrease, or by how much? If you borrow, what happened to cash? If you borrow, what happened to cash? It will be increased, right? This time by 1 million. Agree on that? The amount will be increased by 1 million. Okay, very good. Now, okay, now, for the third transaction, right? Third transaction. Here it said on April the 1st of year one, the company acquired the truck. When we say acquired, what do we mean? We mean that we buy. We acquired, meaning we buy them. So here in this case, we acquired a truck, meaning we purchase or we buy the truck, right? For 850,000 baht cash. And the useful life of the truck is expected to be 5 years. And at the end of that year 5, if you sell it off to some others, you expect to get back 50,000 baht. But my question to you here is, on April the 1st, what happened to the cash balance? So will cash balance be increasing or decreasing? What do you think? Will the cash balance be increasing or decreasing? Okay, so will the balance of cash be increasing or decreasing? This would be decreasing, all right? This would be decreasing. Agree on that? Okay. So this is your analysis on the impact on the cash balance because of the first transaction, second transaction, and third transaction. Okay. So do you agree with the analysis here? Or you have any questions? Okay, I hope that you agree with the analysis here. All right. Now, let's say that I have blank sheet of paper over here. Okay, so everyone, let's take a look here. Let's say that I have blank sheet of paper. So let me cross out everything, right? Let's say that I have this blank sheet of paper. Okay, so suppose that I cross out everything and have this blank sheet of paper. If I want to keep track on the cash account, right? I want to know the balance of cash. What should I do? Right? I want to know the balance of cash. What should I do with this blank sheet of paper? So let's say that from this blank sheet of paper, what I would do is I would draw a big letter T. Okay, so let me draw a big letter T over here, right? Big letter T. Okay. So this big letter T is what we call T account. Okay, T account. Okay, T account. All right. So this big letter T is called T account, right? You should see that this is actually T, the letter T, right? So that's why it's called T account. This T account is just the very same thing as ledger account, okay? T account or ledger account, same thing, okay? So this T account or the ledger account would be used to keep track on the account balance. For this case, what do I want to know? For this particular case, I want to know the balance of cash. See that? I want to know the balance of cash. So over here on top of that big letter T, I will then write down the term cash. Cash. So that I know that this T account is for cash balance. Okay. And now, you know, for the letter in the parentheses, what do I mean by that? That is actually, you know, the type of the account. Right? You may wonder, John, how many different type of the accounts do we have? All right, so let me write it down over here. For the types of account, okay, we have asset. Okay, we have liabilities. We have equity. We have revenues. Okay, we have expenses. Okay, so let me put this in short, like A, L, E, revenues, expense. Okay, so these are the 5 different types of the accounts. Now we have asset, we have liability, we have equity, we have revenues, and we have expense. So let me ask you, for cash, right? Cash is actually the economic resources that you owned, right? And then you can make use of that cash. So that's the reason why cash is part of the asset. Do you agree with me that cash is part of the asset, right? Do you agree that cash is part of the asset? Okay, hope that you do, right? Hope that you do, right? So cash is part of the asset, okay? So over here we have cash on top of that big letter T, and it's part of the asset. Now, if you think about the company, right? They would have a lot of accounts, not just cash, right? So there would be a lot of accounts. So usually what the company will do is the company will assign the account number, right? The company will assign the account number, right, to each and every account they have. Okay, and you may wonder, John, how do we assign the account number? Okay, so let me elaborate a little bit on the account number. So usually the account number for asset, right? Account number for asset will start out with 1. Okay, so the account number for asset would usually be starting out with 1. Okay, and how many digits? Like how many digits? That depend on how big the company is. Think about a really huge company, everyone. Big corporation. For big corporation, there would be a lot of transactions. There would be, you know, a lot of detailed information that they want to gather, right? So for that, the account number could be like 10 digits long, 8 digits long, or even more. So for big corporation, the account number would be really long, but for a small corporation, the level of detail, the complication of transactions, and the nature of business would be straightforward and everything, right? So the account number could be only like 3 digits or 5 digits. Okay, so it will depend on how complicated the transactions are, you know, how big the corporation is, how detailed information they want to collect. So this would then depends, right? Whether they want to use 3 digits, 5 digits, 8 digits, or whatever, 10 digits or whatever, right? So it will depend on the company's policy. But the thing is, if they have asset account, right? If they have asset account, then usually they would assign the account number starting out with 1. Okay. And then you may make a guess, right? You may make a guess that, you know, if they have liability, what would be the starting number for the account number? Right. You may make a guess that's really straightforward. Okay. So for the liability, usually the account number would then be starting out with 2. Okay, but it can be more than this 3 digits. Nah? It could be more, right? And then for the equity, the account number would usually be, you know, starting out with 3. Okay, and then for the revenue, usually it will be starting out with 4. And then expand, usually it will be starting out with 5. Okay, but how many digits, that depends. Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, so this will be discussion on the different type of the account and how do we assign the account number to it. Any questions here? Okay, all right. If not, then Now that we have the letter T, right? Now that we have letter T. So if you look at this letter T, you basically have the left-hand side, which is this area, right? And then you would have this right-hand side, right? Left and right, okay? Now, how do we call the left-hand side in accounting, everyone? Okay? How do we call the left-hand side in accounting? The left-hand side is called debit in accounting, debit. Debit means left-hand side. And then opposite to that, credit means right-hand side. Okay, debit means left-hand side and then credit means right-hand side. So that is basically the definition of the term debit and credit. Debit means left, credit means right. Left and right. Debit and credit. Okay? All right. Now, over here, let's say that this is the first period of our company. It's a brand new company, everyone. So if it's brand new company, do we have any beginning cash balance? It's just brand new, right? This is the first period. It's the first period that we form a company. So would it be any beginning cash balance? First period, brand new company, we have just started the business. So would it be any beginning cash balance carry forward from prior period? That would be no, right? That would be none. Okay. So the beginning balance was starting out with 0 because this is the first period of this company. All right, first period of this company. Now, we have left-hand side, right? And we have right-hand side. Left and right-hand side. How do we make use of this left and right-hand side? What we're going to do is, what we're going to do is, if we have the increases, everyone, if we have the increases in cash, we will take the increases and then record them on one side. If we have the increases in the account, we will take all the increases to one side. And then for the decreases, we want to separately record them. So if we take the increases to the left, then all the decreases must be on the right. Okay, so let me stop here at this point and then explain this to you. We start out with blank sheet of paper, right? And then we draw that big letter T. That big letter T basically split the blank sheet of paper into two parts, right? Left and right. Okay. So the left-hand side is called debit and the right-hand side is called credit. Then we have left and right-hand side, right? Then when we record the transaction, what we're going to do is we will take all the increases to one side and then we will record the decreases on the opposite side so that we can see clearly what are the things that increase the balance and what are the things that decrease that balance, right? We want to separate them so that we can see clearly what will be the impact on that particular account, right? So let's say that what I want to do for this is that I want to record all increases on the debit side, which is the left-hand side. And then I want to record the decreases on the right-hand side. So this is what I want to do. According to the analysis, right, we have two transactions. All right, we have two transactions that increase the cash balance. Okay, so according to what we have, talk about, if I have the increases, right, I would then record all increases on the left-hand side. So over here, I have the cash received from the share issuance, 1.5 million. And over here, I have the cash received from the borrowing transaction for 1 million. Okay, I'm done with that. And then from the analysis, we know that we have the reduction in cash, right? Reduction in cash. So what I will do is I will take the reduction in cash and put it here on the right-hand side. So by doing this, I can see clearly, right? What are the transactions that increase the balance of cash and what are the transactions that decrease the balance of cash? And let's say that now I want to know the balance of cash, right? So how do I calculate the balance of cash, right? How do I do the calculation for the balance of cash? Okay, so over here, how do I do the calculation? I will first draw the line over here, right? I'll first draw the line. So what does it mean? Why would I draw the line there? I draw the line so that I know that there's no other transactions, and it's time for me to calculate the balance of cash. Now, if you sum up the amounts on the left-hand side, you get 2.5 million, right? Meaning that you have the cash, received for 2.5 million. And then if you sum up the amount on the right-hand side, you will see that you have here 850,000 baht cash paid. Okay, you can see clearly on that. Now, let me ask you, which side has a greater sum? Is it debit side or credit side, DR or CR? Debit or credit? Which side has a greater sum? Is it debit side or is it credit side that has a greater sum? Which side has a greater sum? Okay, so the debit side has a greater sum. Agree on that? So if you do agree, you look at the screen. Okay? Everyone look at the screen if you agree, right? So if you agree that the sum on the left is greater. So if the sum on the left is greater, then the balance would be there on the left-hand side. See that? If the sum on the left is greater, then the balance will be on the left-hand side. Okay? Now, how much would that be? I mean, in terms of the balance, how much is it? The amount here would then be the difference between the two sums, right? The amount here would be the difference between the two sums. So what you need to do is you have to sum up the amount on the left and then sum up the amount on the right, and then you take the difference between the two. So my question to you is, how much is it that you have here? At the end of the period, how much cash do you have? You take the difference between the two sums, please. Take the difference between the two sums. So how much is it that you have now? I want the amount, the amount. How much is it that you have now? All right, so the amount that you have now is 1.65 million, right? 1.65 million. And then after you are done calculating the balance, right? After you are done calculating the balance, then you draw a double line like that, okay? So when you are done, then you draw a double line like that, okay? So let me take note for you. Okay, let me take a bit of note for you. The beginning, let's say the balance. Let me take a little bit of note for you to sum up your thoughts on this. So the balance will be on the side that has a greater sum, right? Okay, so the balance will be on the side that has a greater sum. Okay, and the amount, right? The amount will be the difference between the two sums, right? Between the sum of the left-hand side, or debit sum of the debits, right? And sum of the credit. All right. So the balance will be on the side that has a greater sum. In this case, is debit. And the amount will be the difference between the two sums, right? So hope that you understand this, okay? And over here, you can see that the beginning and ending balance are on the left-hand side, right? Beginning and ending would be on the left-hand side. So let me talk about this a little bit. The beginning and ending balance, right? Beginning and ending balance. So let me use different colors, okay? Beginning and ending balance, right? Are on the left-hand side, right? So this is what we call normal balance. Okay, normal balance. The normal balance will be on the side, is on the side that increase the balance of the account. Okay, So the normal balance over here, sorry. Okay, so the normal balance is on the side that has a gray, Okay, so the normal balance is on the side that increases the balance of that account. So as you can see for cash, right? The side that increased the balance is on debit side. So that's the reason why the beginning and ending balance is on that particular side. Okay, so now you take the note here, please. If you have any questions, please ask the questions. Okay, normal balance will be on the side that increases the balance of that account. So if debit increase the balance of cash, then the beginning and ending balance must be on the debit side. Okay, so now you take the note here, please. Now, if you have any questions, do let me know. When you finish with a note, you send me some stickers or emoji so that I know that you are done. And then if you are done, we will then move along to another thing, another issue that you need to know. Yes.
Beginning balance, ending balance is the same side.
Yes, yes. So the beginning and ending balance will be on the side that is the normal balance of it. Okay, so let me take a bit of note here for you. Okay. Beginning ไม่เห็นแป๊บนึงนะคะso beginning and also ending balance แล้ว are on the beginning and ending balances are on the side that is the normal balance of the account. So always always beginning and ending balance will be on the side that is the normal balance of the account. And let me find the place to put this in. Okay, all right. So the beginning and ending balance would be on the side that is the normal balance of the account, right? Normal balance. So like in this case, the normal balance is on the debit side. So the beginning and also ending balance would be on that debit side. Okay. So thanks for asking. Very good questions you have.
อาจารย์คะ so is that mean that normal balance is the increasing size of the
Account.
check?
Yeah, correct. So the normal balance is on the side that increase the balance of that account. So over here, the beginning and ending balance will be on the side that is the normal balance of the account. Okay, so if you finish with a note here, you let me know, yes?
What if in case that the decrease size have a greater sum, will the ending balance will be on that side?
So it would mean that you have negative balance of cash, is it?
Yes, yes.
All right, so would it be possible to have a negative cash balance?
Oh, no, not at all. Zero.
Okay, so would it be possible for cash to have a credit balance at the end?
Again, please, Ajahn.
Say yes or say no.
Uh,
So you say that would it be possible, right, to have the credit balance for cash? So I'm asking you the question that if you have the credit balance for cash, it means that your cash balance turned negative, right? So would that be possible to have a negative cash balance, class?
No.
No. So it's not possible to have a negative cash balance, right? It's not possible to have negative cash balance. So it's not possible to have a negative cash balance. So would it be possible for cash to have the ending balance on the credit side?
No also.
No, right? So there's no way that you would see the cash balance at the end on the credit side because that is just not possible, right? So if I ask you, Kun Supavet, if I ask you how much money do you have money or not, right? What are the possible answers that you can give me? So if I ask you, hey, Supavet, do you have money, right? How many different answers that you can give me?
Yes or no, I have positive money or zero money.
That's correct. So the balance would never ever turn to the credit side because you cannot have negative cash balance, right? So the beginning and ending cash balance would be on the normal balance side, right? So the ending and beginning and ending balance or the balance on any given day will be on the side that is a normal balance. So what it means by the normal balance, it means that normally if you determine the balance will be on that side. So it's a normal case, right? So normally if you determine the balance of the account, the balance will be on, that respective side. So usually, the normal balance will be on the side that increase the balance of that account. Okay. So hope that I respond to the questions for Kun Hela as well. So Hela, what do we mean by normal balance? So normally, if we determine the balance of the account on any given day, the balance will be on that respective side, and it will be on the side that increase the balance of the account. Okay. Any other questions? Have you finished up with the notes here? Yeah. So if not, then let me move along to the two accounting books. So now from this page, you can determine the balance of cash, right? You can determine the balance of cash, right? And also you can use this same logic to determine the balance of all other accounts. Okay. Now let me talk about the two accounting books. Two accounting books. The first one is called this one, the first one, the first one is called General Journal. General Journal, this one. So this first accounting book is called General Journal. So let me talk about this General Journal. What does it mean by this General Journal? Okay, General Journal. All right. So this General Journal, General, let me type it out for you. So the General Journal is one of the accounting book. Okay, so this General Journal is actually one of the accounting books used to that we use to record the transaction. So it's like you keeping a journal, you keeping a diary, right? You keeping records of what really happened in that period. Like for example, if you wanna take, seize the moment, right? One of the best days of your life, right? So basically you record what happened, right? Maybe by taking pictures, posting on your Instagram and all that, right? So we find a way to record what happens using many different means, right? And in accounting, we record what happened in this general journal, right? General journal. So let me explain to you the general journal. This is the example of the transaction that I will use to explain to you how to record the general journal. So this is the first transactions that you have already analyzed. You said earlier that if you issue the shares to the investor, you're going to get money. Remember this transaction? If you issue, meaning sell the shares, if you sell the shares, you're going to get money. All right, so let's analyze this transaction one more time. Let's say that this is the asset, right? Assets must equal liability plus shareholders equity, right? So A must equal L plus E. Okay, hope you do agree with this equation. All right, A equal L plus E. From your analysis earlier, you said, oh, Ajahn, if the company issue the shares, okay, if the company issue the shares to the investor, the company will then receive money, right? Do you remember the analysis that you performed earlier? Okay. You said that if you issue, meaning sell the shares, you're going to get money, right? And I do agree with you on that. And over here, if you issue the shares to the investor and you get money, would that be, anything affected liability? What do you think? Or in other words, let me ask you, who gives you this 1.5 million? Is it the creditor or is it the owner? L or E? Who gives you that money? 1.5 million. Is it from the creditors, meaning L, right? Or is it from the owners, meaning E, right? Owners or creditor, what do you think? It has to be the E here, right? E, right? So over here, what happened is share capital is also increasing, right? By the very same number, same amount. You agree with me on that? Okay. And there's no impact, no effect, right? No effect for the liability, no effect for the liability. Now, one more time. Let me recap one more time. If the company issue, meaning sale, right, the shares. If the company sell the shares and then, get money, right, for 1.5 million, what happened is cash balance, which is part of the asset, would then be increasing. Okay. And since you get money from the owners, it has nothing to do with the creditor. So the liability here would then be no effect. Okay. And for the equity, everyone, for the equity, you get more money from the owners. Am I right? You get more money from the owners. So here the share capital would then be increasing by 1.5 million. Okay, so hope that you do agree with the analysis here. Okay, hope that you do agree with the analysis here. So if you do agree, then let me record the transaction for you. Okay, so what I would do is, first of all, I will identify the date that the transaction occurred. So according to the information given, this particular transaction occurred on Jan the 1st of year 1. So I put in Jan 1st year 1 into the date. Okay, so this is how I start. And over here, cash, which is part of the asset, is increasing, right? Cash, which is part of the asset, is increasing. So what do we need to do is, we need to identify that cash balance is increasing. And we will record that with debit, right? Cash is increasing. So if cash is increasing, we would then record that with the debit, okay? And there's no effect on the liability, so we can just skip that. And then another thing is, the share capital is increasing. So what I would do is I will put in the term share capital as well. But this time, I will put in the increase in the share capital, which is part of the equity on the credit side. Okay. And then for the post reference, this is actually the account number. So for cash, the account number is 101 because it's the asset. And for the share capital, let's say that the account number is 301. All right. And over here, I have the increase in cash for 1.5 million. So I put it there on the debit side. And then I have the increase in the share capital for the very same number. So I put it there to the credit side. Okay. So this is how I record the transaction. Okay, so this is how I record transaction. Let me recap. You have to identify the date that the transaction occurred. Okay, and then you have to identify all the accounts that are affected. And also you have to identify the account number. Okay, and then you have to record the impact of that transaction on the debit or credit side, okay? And the amount here that you record must be balanced. So if you record 1.5 million with debit, then it has to be the very same number on the credit side, meaning the entry must be balanced. Okay. And another thing is debit must be recorded first, and then after that you record credit. And if you do remember, what does it mean by debit? Debit means left-hand side. So you have to record this debit on to the left. See that? To the left. This is also to the left, right? To the left. And then for the credit, you have to take right indented. You see that? Right indented, and then you record credit. Take right indented, and then you record credit. And this is on the right-hand side as well. See that? Take right indented, and then record credit. And the credit here must be on the right-hand side as well. Okay. Now, let me write down the notes here for you, and then you take notes, and then later on I will take the questions from you, but take note first, all right, and then I take the question from you. So you have to here identify the date that the transaction occurred. Okay, so that's the first thing that you have to do, right? And then you have to identify the accounts that are affected by transactions. Together with the account number. Okay, so you have to identify, the accounts that are affected together with the account number, and then you have to. May I do this? A bit of shortcut. So may I have a bit of shortcut? So let me แป๊บนะคะ shortcut นิดนึงนะคะ so let me take all this to here นะคะ Okay, so a bit of shortcut there. So first of all, I have to identify the date that the transaction occurred. And then I have to list all the accounts that are affected by the transactions together with the account number. And then I have to record debit first, and then follow that by credit. And the debit is on the left and the credit must be on the right. So don't forget to take right indented. And also you have to identify the account number. And then you have to record equal amount in debit and credit, meaning that every entry must be balanced. And for each and every entry, each and every transaction, each and every entry, there must be at least one debit and there must be at least one credit. It could be more than just one, but it has to be at least one. Meaning that for each and every transaction, you have to have both debit and credit. Both debit and credit. All right. So now could you please take the note here? Take the note here. And then when you are done, I would then explain you for more. And then I will take questions from you. But first of all, you take note first, and then I take the questions from you later on. Take note first, and then I'll recap, and then I'll take questions from you. I'm sure that you will have questions. Okay. So if you finish up with a note here, let me explain you one more time. Okay. So when you record this, general journal, okay, this is very important accounting book. So you have to learn how to record the general journal. When you want to record this general journal, you have to identify the date that the transaction occurred, and then you identify the account, right, that are affected. Here in this case, cash and the share capital. Okay. For each and every transaction, there must be at least one debit and at least one credit. It could be more, but at least one, all right? And you have to start out recording debit and then followed out by credit. When you want to record credit, you have to take right indented, don't forget. Okay, and then you have to identify the account number so that you can proceed to the next step. And in terms of the amount, okay, the amount on the debit and the amount on the credit must be balanced. Okay, so that's things that you need to know. So I'm happy to take questions now. I'm sure that you will have questions. เชิญค่ะ You have to have questions because I intentionally, omit one very important thing that would lead to confusion. That's intentional. So that's intentional.
Why equity credit?
Okay. Do you have any other questions so that I can take them all at once? So the first question is why the share capital is on the credit side, right? Any other questions that I can take them? You all list questions and then I will take them all at once. Any other questions that you may have? No, we don't need to. You'll be given with the information, so you will be given with the thing is, Hela, the account number will be different from one company to another. So it's not a standard like account number that all use the same number. So it depends on the company. So there's no way that you would be able to remember the account number for all the companies in the world, right? So it has to be given. It has to be given. Any other questions? So I can take them all at once. I have one question from your friends already.
อาจารย์คะที่อันนี้มันเป็น owner's เพราะมันเป็น share capital ใช่ไหมคะ
One more time.
ที่อันนี้มันเป็นแบบowner's equity เพราะว่ามันมาจาก share capital ใช่ไหมคะเพราะว่าสามารถมีเคสอื่นได้เหมือนกันใช่ไหมคะ
The question is why when you issue the shares is part of the equity. Is that the question? I'm not sure I get your question.
Yes, but also I have a question. Like there are chances that the situation would be different from this one, right? But from the bank or something else.
Yeah, of course, yes. Like it could be different, yes. For this particular case, you get money from the shareholders. Agree on that? So if you get the money from the shareholders, they are actually the owners of the company. So if the fund is coming from the owners, then you have to record the equity. But if you get the funding from some other sources, then you may record them separately, right? So for the bank, that would be the second example that you will see. Of course, you may get money from some other reasons. And do I have any other questions so that I can take the questions all together? Okay, all right. So if not, then let me take the questions from your friend of why the share capital is credited. I'm sure that lots and lots of you have the very same questions here. Over here, when you have the increase in cash, right, you record the increases on the left-hand side, like we have, recorded here, right? When you have the increase in cash, we will then record the increases on the left-hand side, right? Which is consistent with this recording, right? Consistent with this recording. See that? If you have the increase in cash, which is part of the asset, right? You have to record debit. See that? You have to record debit, right, to the cash account. Okay, so this is consistent with the prior example. So you don't have questions there. But the ones that you have questions on would be this one, right? The ones that you have questions on is this one. You may wonder, John, why? Right? Your question is just why? When share capital, which is the equity account, is increasing, why would you record credit? Right? It's also increasing, right? But why would you record this on the credit side? Why? Okay, so let me address this question, and then later on I'll ask you whether you now understand. All right, so let me address this question. So I will address these questions by explaining you this double entry accounting system. So everyone please go to this double entry accounting system. You move it up so it's before the things that we talk about all right. So over here you know the accounting equation already, right, from last week. If you have asset, all right, if you have asset 100 million, right, remember the example last time? So if you have 100 million in asset, right, I'm asking you, where do you get the money to buy all these assets, right? Why, where do you get the money to buy all these assets, 100 million? Where do you get that money? If you get the money from the owners, then it's part of the equity, right? If you get the money from the owners, then it's part of the equity. And then if you don't have enough there, you may get money from the creditors, right? And that would be part of the liabilities, okay? So at all time, A must equal L plus E, right? We understand that. Now, we have equation here, right? We have equation here. So we have here the equal sign, right? Right, equal sign. So if I highlight this equal sign, right? If I highlight this equal sign, you will see that you have left-hand side of the equation and you have right-hand side of the equation, right? Left-hand side and right-hand side. Left and right, all right? Okay, so hope that you can see and agree that assets are on the left-hand side of this accounting equation, right? So assets are on the left-hand side of this accounting equation. So if the asset is increasing, we have to record the increase on the left-hand side. See that? One more time. If you look at this accounting equation, assets are on the left-hand side of the accounting equation. So if the asset is increasing, we have to record debit to it. All right. Now, opposite to that, if you look at this equation one more time, you have L and E on the right-hand side. So if you have the increase in L and also increase in E, then you have to record them on the right-hand side. Okay, so this is basically the rule. And according to what I have already mentioned, we want to separate out the increases and decreases, right? Increases and decreases. We want to separate out. So over here, how do we separate out? If we have the decreases, then we have to record the decreases on the opposite side, right? Opposite side. Like for example, on the asset, right? You record increases on the left-hand side. So the decreases must be on the opposite side. That would be the credit, right, side. And same for L and E, right? L and E. If you record L and E, all right? If you record increases on the right-hand side, then the decreases must be on the opposite side, and that would be the debit side. Okay? Now, if you determine the balance of the account, normally the balance will be on the side that increase the balance of the account, right? Okay? So if you determine the balance of the account, normally the balance will be on the side that increase the balance of that particular account. So here, the normal balance of the asset would then be on the left-hand side, and the normal balance of the liability will be on the right-hand side. The normal balance of the equity will be on the right-hand side, okay? All right. Now, I have something to tell you. And if you do agree with my statement, then you said, yes, agree, or just why. So first, a statement that I want to say is A must equal L plus E. Agree or don't agree? Yes or no? If you do agree, then you said yes or why. If you don't, then you said no, you don't agree. Okay, agree, all right? You agree that the asset equals to liability plus shareholders' equity. This is the accounting equation that we talked about last time. And do you agree that asset would normally have the debit balance? Asset would normally have the debit balance, meaning that when you do the calculation, the balance of the asset will be on the left-hand side. Agree or don't agree? Okay, you do agree, all right? Now, for liability and the equity, do you agree with me that, liability and the equity, do you agree with me that if you determine the balance of L and E, the balance of L and E would be on the right-hand side? Agree or don't agree? If we determine the balance of L, if we determine the balance of E, the balance would be on the credit side. Agree, all right? So if you do agree on all these statements, then you should also agree that debit must equal credits. Okay, so do you agree that debit must equal credit? If you do agree, then you say debit DR equals CR. You type it in. Okay, so if you do agree with all these statements, then you type in DR equals CR. Must be นะคะ DR equals CR. Debit must equal credit นะคะ Debit must equal credit. Right? Debit must equal credit. And this is what we called double entry accounting system ที่รักนะคะ So this is what we called double entry accounting system. When you record the transaction, you have to record equal debits and credit. When you summarize, the balances, debit must equal credit. So, we have to check for the balance at all time, right? So this is double entry accounting system. Okay, so let's stop here for a few seconds. If you have any questions, I can then address the question. มีคำถามไหมคะ? All right. So if you don't have any questions, then let me go back to this recording, and then I'll ask you whether you now understand. All right. So for this particular case, cash is increasing, right? Cash is increasing. So cash is part of the asset. When asset is increasing, you have to record debit to it. All right. Then over here, you have the increase in the share capital, which is part of the equity. According to the rule, right? According to the rule, the increase in the equity, which is on the right-hand side, right, of the accounting equation, must be recorded on the credit side. So now, do you understand why the share capital is credited here? If yes, send me some smiling face or send me some hearts. If not, you let me know. Okay. If you do understand why the share capital is credited, now that you understand, before you confuse, right? But now, after I explained to you the debit and credit rule, if you understand now, you let me know. If not, you ask me questions. It's okay to be confused, because this is the first time, right, that you see this debit and credit. Kun Supawe, do you have any questions? All right, so hope that now you understand why the share capital is credited when it's increasing. It is actually because of the debit and credit rule. Okay, let me explain to you this way,นะคะ. It's okay to be confused because this is the first time that you see it, right? So some of you may say, Ajahn, I think I understand, but I'm not sure. Do you have that feeling? Yeah. Some of you may say, right? Ajahn, I think I understand, but I'm not sure. I remember the first time I studied debit and credit, right? I think I understand, but I'm not sure whether my understanding is correct. So that's quite common. That's quite normal for everyone, right? First time learner. So what will I do? Right? You share the same feelings. So you think you understand, but you are not sure whether your understanding is, correct. So it's okay to be like that. This is quite normal. So what we can do is, we can talk about more example. So if we talk about more example and then you understand more and more and more, later on you will feel confident and then you can say, oh, Ajahn, I think I now understand. So right now we have seen only one transaction, right? So we've seen only like one transaction. So you may be like not so sure whether you actually understand. So that's okay. Let's wait until you see more and more example and then make sure that you do understand. If not, you ask questions. So all right, hope that you now understand the entry here. So if you understand the entry here, then I will talk about the second accounting book. So this second accounting book is what we call general ledger. General ledger. So let me highlight this general ledger. See, ladies, if I can. All right. So let me highlight this general ledger. Okay. So for the general ledger, what is it? Right? What is it? How do we make use of this general ledger? The general ledger is another accounting book, right? It's one of the accounting books. That we use to keep track on account balances. Okay, so this general ledger, general ledger is basically another accounting book, and we use it to keep track on the account balances. All right. So when we post the transaction, the term is post. When we post the transaction, then the balance will be updated. Posting. Let me take a bit of note here. For posting, everyone, posting. Posting. So what does it mean by posting? It means that you basically updating the balance. Okay, so when we say post or posting, we mean that we update the balance of all the accounts that are affected by the transaction. Yeah. So you update the balance of the account after you have recorded the transaction. Okay, so let me explain to you the posting process. Posting process. I may need to reduce the size a bit because I want you to see the whole thing here. Okay, so let me explain to you by using this example. By using this example. So from the previous analysis, we know that if we issue the shares, then we have to record here debit to cash and credit to the share capital. All right. So let me use this example, and then I will perform the posting for you. Now, everyone, after this transaction, right? After this transaction, do you have money? After you sell the shares to the investor, do you have money? Yes or no? After you issue the share, do you have money? You have now, right? You have money now. Agree on that? So you do have money now. Weขอโทษค่ะ. Okay. So after you have, issued the shares, you do have money. Agree on that? You do have money. So after you have money, then what are the things that you have to do? Right? What are the things that you have to do? You know, you have to update the balance of cash. You have to update the balance of cash. Let me take out this line. Okay. All right. So after this transaction, everyone, after this transaction, you do have money, right? Yeah. So after you have issued the shares, you do have money. But if you look at the cash account here, it's empty. Can you see that the cash balance is empty, right? After this transaction, you actually have share capital, right? You do have share capital. But if you look at this T account, it's still empty. Why so? Because you have not updated the balance. You have not posted the transaction, right? So if you have not posted the transaction, right? If you have not posted the transaction, then the account will then be empty. It's not updated, right? You do have money now, but if you look at cash, it's still empty. You do have share capital now, but if you look at the share capital account, it's still empty, right? So this is the reason why you have to update the balance of cash and also share capital. So now let me tell you how to make the update, right? First of all, you have to identify whether you have the beginning balance, okay? So first of all, you have to identify whether you have the beginning balance. All right. So now the left-hand side of the account is called debit. Everyone, just to recap. Left-hand side is called debit and right-hand side is called credit. All right. Now, how do you post the transaction? Right? How do you post the transaction? Here in this case, cash is affected, right? Cash is affected. So you have to find the cash account, all right, everyone? You have to find the cash account. Okay, so cash is affected. So you have to find the cash account, right? Which account is it, right? In terms of the account number. So the account number is actually 101, right? So now that you find the cash account, right? You find that you have cash account, which is the account number 101. You find that already. After you find that, then you identify that the date that the transaction occurred. So you put it here, the date that the transaction occurred. And this cash is increased with debit. So what you need to do is you need to take this 1.5 million and put it here to the left-hand side, right? Because debit means left. So you have to put this 1.5 million to the left-hand side of the account. So this is the posting, all right? This is the posting of the, So this is the posting of the cash account. Right? Posting of the cash account. Okay, so this is to update the cash balance. Okay, you do this so that the cash balance is updated. All right. Now, you need to also find the share capital account and see here, right? Share capital. So let me put in the share capital here, right? Okay. Now I find the share capital. What is the account number for the share capital? It's actually 301, right? 301. Now that I find that share capital, what do I need to do next? I have to identify the date that the transaction occurred over here, right? Date that the transaction occurred. And not just that, right? Not just that. I need to take this 1.5 million to the right-hand side of the accounting of the share capital account, right? So I have to take this 1.5 million to the right-hand side of this, share capital account. And this is to update the balance of the share capital. Right? So this is to update the share capital balance. And the whole thing is called posting. Now, which means to update the account balances of all accounts that are affected by the transaction. Okay, so this is how you update the balance. Okay, so cash is increased with debit, so you put it there, right? 1.5 million baht on the debit side, and then you know, the share capital is credited over here, so you take the 1.5 million to the right hand side of it. Okay, so this is what we call posting. So after the posting, then the account balance would then be updated. Okay, so now you take note here, please. If you have any questions, you let me know.
Ajahn,
Cha.
any case cash will be credit and share capital will be debit, or is it depend on us? Like when we first time do the transaction, which side do we label as the increasing side?
You mean for the transaction or for the ending balance? Because the answer will of course be different. You are asking about the balance at the end, or you are asking about the change during the accounting period?
The chain one. I mean, the first
Okay.
time that,
Okay, the change. รู้เรื่อง Okay, for the change, right? For the change, you can have reduction in cash, meaning that cash can be credited. Like, you know, for the third transaction, right, that we talk about when we buy the truck, right? So if we buy the truck, then cash is paid out. So cash can be credited if it's decreasing, right? But if you are asking about the ending balance, then that is not possible. Right? So if you are asking about change, we can have positive change or negative change, meaning that we can have debit or credit, right? Depending on the transaction. But if you are asking about the ending balance or the balance on any given day, then it's not possible. So I have to be clear your questions, what it is, so that I can respond properly, because the answers are not the same. Okay. So for cash, right? Whether it's possible to have credit to cash, the answer is yes. Whenever you have the cash payment, then it's credit to cash. It's possible, right? But if you ask me whether cash can have credit balance at the end or on any given day, the answer would then be no, not possible. Understand the difference between the change and the balance?
Understood ครับ ขอบคุณมากครับ
Okay, all right. And let me go back to this. Okay, so do you have any questions about the updating the balance? All right, if not, then let me move along to this. So I think we are ready, right, for the more example, okay, so that I can address your concern whether you actually understand or you kind of understand, okay. So I remember my time as a student long ago, but you know, I do understand your feelings, right? First time studying accounting, studying debit and credit, you think you understand, but you're not so sure whether you actually understand. So, you know, the things that we can do is we can see more of the example, and we can make sure that all of you understand this concept, okay? So let me put in this A, right? And then equal, L plus, E, okay. So we will analyze transaction together. The first one, the first transaction is actually the ones that we have just discussed earlier. So I take this first one as the example. So what I'd like you to do is I want you to repeat the note here, just for this one, repeat the note here, right? Okay, so it's just going to be the same, right? Just going to be the same as the ones that we have just talked about. So for this first one, again, cash is increasing and the share capital is increasing for 1.5 million. And then this is a chart of account. So if you want to know the account number for this particular company, then you look at the chart of accounts. So over here, could you please repeat the note here, right? Repeat the note here, the ones that you have just recorded. So over here, you record debit to cash because cash is increasing and it's part of the asset. And you record credit to the share capital because the equity is increasing and the equity is increasing. So you record the transaction this way. Okay, so please, repeat the note here. Okay, I know that you have already taken the note, but I would like you to repeat it now. All right, and then another thing that I want you to repeat. ไม่เป็นไรใจเย็นอะไรนะ
What is A plus or and E plus in the brackets?
Oh, what is A? What is L? What is E? ที่รักขา A is for asset.
Why that there is a plus symbol after it?
Oh, if you issue the shares, what happened to the asset balance? Is it increasing or decreasing?
Increasing.
So that's why you have the plus sign there.
Okay, I got it. Okay,
all right. So don't worry about not finishing on the note here because I have to come back to this anyway. All right. Now for this general ledger, you have the beginning balance of cash for 0. Why? This is the first period. And now you receive 1.5 million, right, from the share issuance. So this is the posting process that I teach you earlier. I want you to again repeat taking notes here. Okay? So it's a repeat. Same thing that we have already discussed. Okay? So it's the same thing that we have already discussed. Okay, so it's the same thing that, we have discussed. And over here, again, it's a repeat. It's a repeat. Okay, so for this, share capital, again, this is the first period. So the beginning balance would be just 0. Okay, it would be just 0. And over here, you have the increase for 1.5 million because of the share issuance. A means asset, L means liability, E means equity, and REV means revenue, EXP means expense. Okay, so yes.
If it's like this, we don't have to write credit and debit and credit on top แล้วใช่ไหมคะ
We must know that the right hand side of all the accounts is called credit, and then the left hand side of the account is called debit. We must know that already.
Okay, ขอบคุณค่ะ
All right. Now, okay. Now that you repeat the note on the transaction 1, then we can move along to transaction number 2. On February 1st of year 1, what happened is the company borrowed 5-year bank loan, right, for 1 million. And the interest rate is for 6% per year, and it's going to be payable every January the 31st, right, meaning payable once a year. So from your analysis earlier, you know that the cash balance is increased, right, by 1 million, right? You have already performed this analysis. So let me ask you a question. Who gives you this 1 million? Is it the owners or is it the creditor? So should we record L or should we record E here in this case? Is it L or E? Who gives you money? Is it the creditor or is it the owners? So who give you that money? Okay, so it's going to be liability here, right? The bank loan, right, would be recorded as part of the liability. So let me ask you, you owe them more or you owe them less? Do you have more of the liability or less of the liability? Is it the increase in L or decrease in L? You owe them more or you owe them less? Okay, so you owe them more, right? You owe them more. Okay, you owe them more. All right, you owe them more. And so for this case, it has nothing to do with the equity, right? So it's NE meaning no effect. นะคะtake note NE meaning no effect นะคะ no effect. Okay, so let me ask you questions. Help me recording this, please. If the cash account, right, cash account is increasing and it's part of the asset, all right? Cash is part of the asset. Okay? Cash is part of the asset. If it's increasing, how should I record it? Should it be DR or CR? Credit or debit, debit or credit? What do you say? If cash, which is part of the asset, is increasing, would that be debit or would that be credit? Okay, so it's going to be debit, right? Debit. Debit. Now, how about bank loan? All right, bank loan. Bank loan is part of the liability and it's increasing here. ถูกไหมลูก Bank loan is part of the liability and it's increasing here. My question to you is, how should I record the increase in the liability? How should I record the increase in the liability? Should it be debited or should it be credited? Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, you are correct. Right, you are correct. So over here, we have the debit to cash, right, and credit to bank loan. I do agree with your analysis, so let me put this in this, entry. Debit to cash, just like what you said, okay, when you have received the money, and then credit to bank loan when you borrow more, right, just like what you said. So I record the transaction the way you suggested, okay, so this is correct. And how do you know the account number? Let me go back to this so that you know where can I get the account number. So this is what we call chart of account, right? Chart of account. So cash is 101, right? For this company, company A, right? And the bank loan is 206, okay? So I get that information from the chart of accounts. See that? I get the information from charts of account. So now, could you please record this second transaction if you agree with the analysis here? Okay, record the transaction, please. If you don't agree or if you have any questions, you let me know,นะคะ All right. So if you finish up with this, then let me update the cash balance for you. If you get more money, everyone, if you get more money, then the cash will be increased with debit. So I put in the 1 million here on the left-hand side because we get more money. Okay, so please update the cash balance for me. Everyone, please update the cash balance. If you are done, you let me know. All right. Don't forget we have 800 comments to beat. Don't forget now we have 800 comments to beat this morning section. Okay, all right. Now don't forget. Now let me remind you that we have 800 comments to beat. Okay, thank you. Done all right. Now, how about bank loan? Bank loan. At first, you don't have bank loan, right? At first, you don't have bank loan, but now you do, right? Because you borrow 1 million baht from the bank on Feb the 1st of year 1. So you have to also update the bank loan balance. Right? So everyone, please update the bank loan balance. Update the bank loan balance. Okay, all right. So now you update the bank loan balance. Okay. So if you finish up with this, then let me talk about the third transaction. And then after the third transaction, I'll let you take the break. But let me address the third transaction first. All right. So over here on April the 1st, the company acquired the truck, meaning buy. When we say acquire, acquired, it means that we buy, right? So here in this situation, we buy the truck for 850,000 baht cash. And the useful life of the truck is expected to be 5 years. We plan to use the truck for 5 years. And the residual value is estimated to be 50,000. What do we mean by this residual value? It is actually the amount you think you will get at the end of year 5. So, I mean, if you finish using the truck, if you sell off the old truck to some others, you expect to get 50,000. All right. So now what do we know? From your analysis earlier, right? From your analysis earlier, when we determined the cash balance, hope that you can still remember. When we determine the cash balance, you performed the analysis on this transaction already, and you stated that the cash balance would then be decreasing, right? For 850,000. Okay, so this is what you have analyzed earlier, that cash would then be decreasing for 850,000. And as for L, there will be no effect. And as for E, there's no effect. So that's like the phone call. All right. So over here, we have analyzed that cash balance would be decreasing, right? For 850,000. Okay. There's no impact, no effect on L, no effect on E. But let's talk about the truck. Okay. I'm sure that you agree with me that the truck is part of the asset, right? So if you buy the truck, what happened to the truck balance? Do you have more truck or do you have less truck? This is not a trick question, right? I mean, if you buy a truck, then you hopefully get the truck and it will be increasing. So this is really straightforward. Hope that you do agree that if you buy a truck, you get the truck and the balance would be increasing. Okay, and the cash balance here would then be decreasing. Okay, so over here, let's record the transaction together. Everyone, if you buy more truck, and the truck is part of the asset, should you record debit to the truck or credit to the truck? Debit to the truck or credit to the truck? DR or CR? It's DR, right? Okay, very good. Now, if you pay out cash, how do you record? Should you record debit to cash or credit to cash? Debit to cash or credit to cash? Debit to cash or credit to cash if you pay cash. Okay, if you pay cash. All right. Now, okay, now, over here, okay, we have analyzed that the truck is increasing, so that's debit to truck, and for cash, it's gone, right? So you have to record credit to cash. So let's record the transaction here. You have debit to the truck. Now the account number is 107, and then the credit would go to cash. It's 101. Okay. So now ค่ะคุณสุภเวศ do you see that cash can be credited if you pay out cash เห็นไหมคะลูก so you asked me earlier, right, that whether it's possible to have a credit to cash. I said yes, of course. When you pay out cash, then you have to record credit to cash. Hope that you see it now, right?
Thank you ครับ
ค่ะนะ it's possible เนอะ so you record the transaction here please when you are done you let me know, all right, and then I can show you the updates of the accounts, and then we're going to take the break after that. All right, so if you finish up with this, then let me update the cash account for you. So over here you have paid 850,000, right? So that 850,000 would then be recorded, posted, right, to the right hand side of this cash account. So please update the cash balance for me, because now we pay, right, 850,000 already. So please update that for me. And another thing that you have to also update is the truck, right? So now that you buy the truck, right? So you have the increase in the truck. Okay. So over here, the increase in the truck of 850,000 must be posted to the debit side of the account number 107. All right, so if you finish up taking notes,นะคะ, and take a break,นะคะ, and then be back,นะ. 15 minutes, so it's 55, no? นะคะ so if you finish up with a note here, then take a break,นะคะ, and then come back at 2:55 p.m.นะคะ. If you have any questions, please type it in,นะคะ, and then I will respond,นะคะ.
อาจารย์ครับ from what we have just done is called posting, right?
Okay, for those of you who are back, do you have any questions that I can address right now? For the first 3 transactions, do you have any questions? Okay, if not, then I think we can talk about the transaction number 4. All right, so for the transaction number 4, what happened is, the company acquired, meaning buy the inventory from the supplier, right? And the amount is 250,000, and this is on account. So let me elaborate on the term on account, right? So what does it mean by this term, on account? Okay, so on account would be just the same as the term on credit. It would mean that cash is not paid for at the time of purchase. So this is what it means by this term, all right? So the term on account or on credit, it means that the cash is not paid at the time of the purchase, but we get the inventory already. So my question to you is, what will happen to the inventory? Will it be increasing or decreasing? What do you think? Right? What will be the change in the inventory when you buy the inventory? So would it be increasing or decreasing? So this would then be increasing, right, by 250,000, right? 250,000, okay? Now, if you have not paid, everyone, if you have not paid, do you owe the suppliers money? What do you think? If you have not made the payment, do you owe the suppliers money? Yes, you do, right? Yes, you do. So if you owe the suppliers money, right, you have to make the payment later on, right? So you have an obligation. In that situation, we would call this as accounts payable, right? Accounts payable. So what does it mean by this term, accounts payable? You buy the product on account, right? So you have accounts payable, meaning that in the future, you have to make the payment to them, right? You have to make the payment to them. So my question is, you have more liability or less liability? You owe them more or you owe them less? Is it the increase or decrease in the liability? What do you think? So over here, you owe them more, right? You owe them more, right? You owe them more. So if you owe them more, if you owe them more, so if you owe them more, then you have more of the liability. So this is increasing for 250. For the equity, there's no effect, right? No effect. All right. Now, everyone, help me with this, please. If you have the increase in the inventory, which is part of the asset, increase in the inventory, which is part of the asset, should you record debit to it or credit to it, Ka? Debit to it or credit to it? Debit or credit? Okay, so it's going to be debited, right? It's going to be debited. Okay, debited. Now, how about the liability? All right, everyone, how about the liability? If you have more liability, would you record debit to the liability or credit to the liability? Debit or credit to the liability? Okay, so it's going to be credited, right? Credited. Okay, so hope you agree with this analysis. Agree, Meka? All right, so if you agree with this analysis, then let me record the transaction for you. So over here, we will need to record debit to inventory because you get the inventory. And then the credit will then go to the accounts payable. Okay, debit to the inventory, credit to the accounts payable. Okay, you take note here, please. If you have any questions นะคะ you can turn on your microphone or you can type it up whatever you like นะคะ All right, so hope that you finish up with this note already. And then let me update the inventory balance. So for the inventory, everyone, you have acquired, meaning buy more of the inventory. So if you buy more of the inventory, then the inventory must be debited, right, for 250,000 baht, 250. So please record the transaction. All right, so if you finish up with the inventory, then let me move along to the accounts payable. So if you have not paid, right, if you have not paid, then basically you owe the suppliers money. Here in this situation, you have to record the increase in the liability on the credit side, and it's 250,000, right, 250,000. So update the accounts payable for me, please. All right, suppose that you all have finished up with the updates, okay? So let me move back to this information given so that I can analyze more of the transaction with you. Over here it said that the company has sold the product, right, to the customers. And the amount is 850,000, and this is again on account. So what does it mean by on account in this situation? Okay, so let me explain to you here. Okay, so what does it mean by on account or on credit? Okay, so it means that for this case, at the time of the sale, you have not received the money. Okay, the company has made a sale already. So according to the accrual basis of accounting, if you have delivered the products, then you can record the revenue, right? But the thing is, you have not collected the money. So how do you record the transaction here? Everyone, let me guide you a bit on this. You deliver the product already, right? So according to the accrual basis of accounting, you can record revenue now, right? But you have not collected the money. But you do have expectation to receive the money later on. Expectation to receive the money later on. So how do we call this expectation? Expectation to receive the money later on. How do we call it? You expect to get the money from the sales later on. It is, Kunipawi said, it's the account receivable. Receivable, right? So you expect to get the money from the customers. Okay, very good ค่ะคุณวิภาวีคุณนนลนีนะคะ that is perfectly correct. So here in this case we would have the accounts receivable, but my question to you is this increasing or decreasing? You have more expectation to get the money or in the future, or you have less expectation, more or less? Is it the increase in the asset or the decrease in the asset? It's the increase, right? Because you think you're gonna get more money in the future, right? So if you think that you're gonna get more money in the future, then it's part of the increase in the asset, right? Increase in the asset. Okay, increase in the asset. All right. Next. Okay, next. For this, there will be no effect on the liability, but there will be the impact on the equity. But before I explain this to you, of what the impact on the equity we should write in here. Let me go back to this relationship and then explain this to you. Okay, so everyone please go back to this figure and then I'll explain this to you. Okay, so let me ask you questions and please respond. Let's say that we have the increase in the revenue, right? We have more revenue. We deliver the products, we render the service, whatever the case is, we have more revenue, okay? So if we have more revenue, everyone, more revenue, what happened to the profit for the year? What happened to the profit for the year? Will it be increasing or decreasing? Increasing or decreasing? So this wouldn't be increasing. Agree on that? Okay, increasing. All right. Now, if you have more profit, everyone, if you have more profit, what happened to the retained earnings? If you have more profit, what happened to the retained earnings? Increase or decrease? Yeah, increase or decrease. Okay, so this wouldn't be increasing as well, right? And don't forget how retained earning is actually part of the equity. Agree on that? Retained earning is actually part of the equity. So the more revenue you have, right, the more profit will be. And if you have more profit, then the retained earnings will be increasing. So if that's the case, then what will be the impact on the equity? The equity balance will be increasing or decreasing because of the revenue. The equity balance will be increasing or decreasing because of the revenue. What do you think? It will be increasing, all right? It will be increasing. So hope that you do agree with my analysis here. So if you agree, then let me write this down for you. If you have more revenue, everyone, more revenue. Let me write this down. If you have more revenue, then the profit or loss will be increasing. If the profit or loss is increasing, the retained earnings would also be increasing. Right? And then if you have the increase in the retained earnings, and then the equity would also be increasing. I hope that you do agree with me on this. Now, if you have the increase in E, everyone, increase in E, would you record debit to it or credit to it? Increase in E. If you have the increase in E, would it be debited or credited? So if you have the increase in E, then it's going to be credited. Agree? Okay, if you have the increase in E, then it's going to be credited. All right. Now, everyone look at this, please. The more revenue you have, the more revenue you have, the more equity will be, right? You see the relationship, right? The more revenue you have, the more equity will be. So how should you record the revenue then? If you have more revenue, then it's going to be more of the equity. So if you have more of the revenue, you should record credit to it. Because the more revenue you have, the more equity will be, right? So the revenue and the equity will be recorded the same way. because more of the revenue would increase the equity balance. So if the increase in the equity balance is recorded with credit, then the revenue should be recorded with credit as well. Okay, now let me take this and then write it for you nicely. Okay, so let me take it to here and then write it for you nicely. According to what we have discussed, okay, according to what we have discussed, we know that for the equity, if we have the increase, we have to record credit to it, right? But if we have the decrease, then we have to record debit to it. Okay, so this is the nature of the equity account. And for the revenue, as I have already mentioned, the more revenues you have, right? The more revenue you have, the more equity balance will be. Look at this now. The more revenue you have, the more equity balance will be, right? So here in this case, you have to record the increase in the revenue with credit. And opposite to that, if there's a case that you have the reduction in the revenue, then the reduction in the revenue must be recorded with debit. So the normal balance of the account will then be on the credit side. So hope that you see this linkage, right? The increase in the revenue would cause the increase in the equity. So it must be recorded on the same side, recorded on the same side. Take note on this, please. Hope that you see the relationship. All right. So if you finish up with the note here, then equity increase. That's correct. All right. So if you finish up with this, then let me go back to this analysis. So what happened is, everyone, the sales revenue is increasing, right? Okay. So the sales revenue is increasing for 850,000. Okay. Sales revenue is increasing for 850,000. And that would cause the retained earnings to be increased by the very same number. Okay, why I write it that way? Let me explain you why I write it this way. In fact, this transaction give rise to the sales revenue. Okay, so this particular transaction give rise to the sales revenue. Okay. The thing is, if you have more revenue, right, finally, the retained earning, which is part of the equity account, would be increasing. Okay, so if the sales revenue is increasing, then the retained earning, which is part of the equity, would also be increasing. So I write it that way, all right? Okay, so over here, the receivable is increasing and also the sales revenue is increasing. Now, could you please help me out on this? Help me out, please. If the accounts receivable, which is part of the asset, is increasing, okay? If the accounts receivable, which is part of the asset, is increasing, how do we record it? Should it be debited or should it be credited? What do you think? Debited or credited? So if the accounts receivable is increasing, what you're gonna do? Okay, so it's going to be debited, right? Debited. All right. Now for the sales revenue. Now this one, for the sales revenue, the more revenue you have, the more equity will be. So how should you record the revenue? Should it be debited or credited? Debit or credit? It should be credit, all right? It should be credit. Okay, very good, correct, All right, so over here, let's record this together. So it's going to be debit to the accounts receivable and then credit to the sales revenue นะคะ debit to the accounts receivable and credit to the sales revenue. Okay, so take the note here, please. If you have any questions, you let me know. Okay, this is transaction number 5. Okay. Remember that we have 8 transactions to go today. Okay, so if you finish up with this, then let me move along to update the balance of the receivable นะคะ so this is the receivable นะคะ at first I don't have any receivable, but now I do. Okay, because I have made the sale and I have not collected the money. So right now I have the 850,000 in the receivable. Okay, so please update the receivable balance. Okay, so if you finish up with this, then let me move along to the revenue นะคะ the revenue is 401 นะคะ so it's here นะคะ 401 ค่ะ okay, so now you have the revenue of 850,000. Please record the revenue for me. Okay, any questions here for the transaction number 5? มีคำถามไหมคะ If not, then let me go back นะคะ to talk about transaction number 6, which is actually related to the number 5, right? So the transaction number 6 and 5, they are actually related. They are actually in the same transaction. Not only you have to record the revenue, but also you have to record the fact that you have sold the inventory. So you should have less of the inventory, right? So these are related, right? These are related. So let me explain to you the term cost of goods sold, right? Cost of goods sold. So the cost of goods sold would be just the same as the term cost of sales, all right? Cost of goods sold or cost of sale. Okay, so it would mean that it's the cost of the product sold. Okay, so this is basically the cost of the product that are sold. So you have to record expense associated with the sale, right? So this is actually the expense นะคะ take additional notes here that for cost of goods sold, we can also record the cost of sales. Now, same thing, all right? So it's basically the cost of the products that are sold. it would be recorded as part of the expense. Okay. Now, let me ask you questions. If you sell the inventory to the customers, do you have more inventory or less inventory? What do you think? If you have sold the inventory to the customers, so do you have more of the inventory or do you have less of the inventory? So it's going to be less, right? 175,000. Okay. So you have less inventory. Right? You have less inventory. Okay, you have less inventory. Now, there's no effect here, right, on the liability. But for the equity, there will be, right? There will be the, the impact. But before we put something in here, let me go back to this figure and then I'll explain to you the impact of the expense. Okay, so everyone please go back to this and then talk about the impact of the expense together with me here. Now, impact of the expense. Ready? So over here, expense. If you have more expense, right? Meaning you have more of the expense, like cost of goods sold, for example, you have more expense. So if you have more expense, what happened to the profit for the year? Would it be increasing or decreasing? More expense, what happened to the profit? So more expense, they have more expense, the profit would then be reducing. And the profit would then be reducing. And then if you have less profit, everyone, if you have less profit, what happened to the retained earnings? If you have less profit, what happened to the retained earnings? The retained earnings would then be decreasing, right? And then if the retained earning is decreasing, then the equity would also be decreasing. Okay? All right, so over here, let me type it out for you and then explain it to you, the impact of the expense. All right, so over here, expense, if expense is increasing, คุณพาณวิทย์ คุณพาณวิทย์ if expense is increasing, what happened to PL คะแล้วคุณพาณวิทย์ if expense is increasing, what happened to the PL? แล้วคุณพาณวิทย์ พาณวิทย์ไปหารูปมาแล้ว so if expense is increasing, what happened to PL? PL would then be decreasing, all right? And retained earnings will be decreasing and the equity would also be decreasing. So over here, okay. So over here, everyone, if you have the reduction in the equity, if you have the reduction in the equity, how do you record it? Should it be debited or should it be credited? If you have the reduction in the equity, should it be debited or credited? So it should be debited, right? It should be debited. All right. Now, everyone look at the screen, please. Let hear from me. Expense, right, is increasing, right? Expense is increasing. So if you have the increase in expense, then the equity would be decreasing. Okay. And whenever, everyone listen up. Whenever you have the reduction in the equity, you have to record debit to it. And the more expense here would lead to the reduction, right, in the equity. So that's why the expense must be recorded with debit, because the more expense you have, the less equity balance will be. You are all in Thailand, right? RC, Hela, Dylan. Have you seen Jessica? Have you seen Jessica, also the exchange student?
No, we haven't seen her.
Oh, I don't know what happened to her because, her name is in my class, but I haven't seen her since, the beginning. Oh, Jessica. Oh, you are here. Oh. So this is the first time you attended the class, right, Jessica? Oh, I'm glad that you find a way in because I'm quite worried. Oh, where are you? And I cannot contact you. So, so it's good that you are here. Welcome to class. This is the first time, right? So let me. I'm surprising. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So over here, I have analyzed. It's so exciting seeing my students. So over here, I have analyzed this together with you that the more expense you have, the less equity balance will be. And if you have the reduction in the equity, you should also record debit to it, right? So that's the reason why you have to record debit to the expense, debit to the expense. Okay. Now, let me reduce the size a bit because I want you to see this revenue and expense on the same screen. So let me recap one more time, right? One more time. The more expense you have, the less profit will be. Okay. And if you have less profit, then you have less retained earnings and you have less equity. All right. Now, the more profit you have, everyone, the more profit you have, will lead to the reduction in the equity, right? The more expense you have, the more expense you have will lead to the reduction in the equity. So I want you to see this one, the more expense you have, right? The more expense you have, the less equity will be. So if you have more expense, that would lead to the reduction in the equity. So that's why the increase in the equity must be recorded with debit. Okay. And opposite to that, if you have the reduction in the expense, then you record credit to it. Okay. And the normal balance of the expense is on the debit side. So make sure that you take note on this. If you have any questions, you let me know. Okay, so do you have any questions here? If not, then I'll go back to the analysis that we have performed earlier, and then I can put in the impact on the equity for transaction number 6. Okay, so this is transaction number 6. Okay, so for the transaction number 6, what happened is you record the cost, right, of goods sold. And the amount here is increasing for 175,000. Agree on that? You have more expense. Okay, you have more expense. So if you have more expense, if you have more expense, what happened to the retained earnings? คุณหนูคะ if you have more expense, what happened to the retained earnings? More expense, what happened to the retained earnings? Would it be increasing or decreasing, and why? Okay, so over here, if you have more expense, right? If you have more expense, then the retained earnings will be decreasing. Agree on that? Okay. So this is the analysis. Okay, this is the analysis. The more expense you have, the less retained earnings balance will be. All right. Now, if I have the reduction in the inventory, which is part of the asset, everyone, I have the reduction in the inventory because I have to give the inventory to the customers. So here, if I have the reduction in the inventory, which is part of the asset, how should I record this? Should it be debited or should it be credited? Inventory, it's decreasing. Should I record debit to the inventory or credit to the inventory? Debit or credit? Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, very good. Yeah. All right, very good. Now, what happened to this cost of goods sold? The cost of goods sold is actually the expense, right? Cost of goods sold is actually the expense. If you have more expense, more expense. How do you record it? Should you record debit to the expense or credit to the expense? Debit to the expense or credit to the expense? Debit to expense or credit to expense? It would be credit to the expense. Okay? So over here, let's record. It will be debit to the cost of goods sold and then credit to the inventory. Debit to cost of goods sold and then credit to the inventory. Okay. So later on, everyone, okay, later on, let me address the questions for Hela. Later on, the revenue and expense would be used to determine the profit, right? Okay. So later on, we will take the revenues and then take out the expenses so that we get profit. And whenever we have profit, that would be the increase in the retained earnings. Okay, so it would be the impact, right? That the revenue and expense would be on the retained earnings. Do you still remember the retained earnings formulas, Hela? Remember this? Do you still remember this, Hela? If you're starting out with the beginning retained earnings, right? Then and then you add the profit to it, right? Take out dividends, then you have ending balance of the retained earnings. Okay, so if you have sales revenue here, right? If you have sales revenue here, the profit wouldn't be increasing, and then the retained earnings at the end will also be increasing. Okay, but if you have the cost of goods sold, which is the expense, then the profit will be decreasing, and at the end, the retained earnings would also be decreasing. Okay, I hope that explain your the retained earnings calculation, right? So the profit will have the impact, right? The profit over here, right? Will have the impact on the retained earning. So if you have more profit, then the retained earnings will be increasing. But if you have less profit, then the retained earnings will be decreasing. Okay. Now, after you have recorded this transaction, so let's update the inventory balance. Originally, right, you have 250,000, but now you sell it all, right? You sell it all for 175. So it means that you have less inventory, right? You have less inventory. Okay, you have less inventory. All right, so after you have updated the inventory, you have to also record the cost of goods sold, which is the expense, all right? So over here, you have the cost of goods sold, the increase, right, for 175,000. So please update the cost of goods sold. All right, so hope that you finish up with this update already. Now let's talk about the transaction number 7 and 8 all together. นะคะ 7 and 8 together. So for the transaction 7, everyone, transaction 7, this is what happened, okay? Let me explain to you the transaction number 7. If you remember in transaction number 4, right? In transaction number 4, you buy the inventory, but you haven't paid, right? You buy the inventory, but you haven't paid. So over here, you owe them actually 250,000. Now what happened is, now what happened is you make a partially payment, right? Partial payment. You make partial payment for the accounts payable for 100,000. Okay. So the sure thing is, everyone, the sure thing is you pay, right? You pay. So the cash balance must be decreasing because you pay. Agree on that? Cash balance must be decreasing because you pay. Okay. But my question to you is, after you pay, what will happen to the accounts payable? Do you owe them more or do you owe them less? Okay. After you pay for this 100,000, what happened to the accounts payable? Would it be more or would it be less if you pay them something, right? So this accounts payable would then be less, right? And the amount is 100,000. Okay, and then there's no effect here, right? No effect here. Now, can you please analyze this together with me? If you pay out cash, if you pay out cash, how do you record it? Should it be debit to cash or credit to cash? Debit to cash or credit to cash? You pay, right? You pay. So should it be debited? Should it be credited? Yeah, it should be credited, right? It should be credited, all right? Now, how about this accounts payable? If you owe them less, right, meaning that you have the reduction in the liability, should it be debited or should it be credited? Reduction in the liability. คุณลูกค้า reduction in the liability, should it be debited or should it be credited? Okay, so it should be debited. Keep that in mind, all right? Okay. Now for the transaction number 8. Transaction number 8 is actually related to transaction number 5. 8 is actually related to transaction number 5. So what happened is you sell the products, but you have not collected the money, right? So that's why you have the receivable here, 850. Okay. So what happened is, you have here partial collection, right? So it's not all, but partial. So you collect, partially the accounts receivable. Okay. Now, if you collect accounts receivable, you're going to receive the money, right? So over here, cash would then be increasing, right? Cash is increasing. But my question to you is, what happened to the accounts receivable after you collect some already? Would you have more receivable or less receivable? What do you think? More receivable or less receivable? More or less receivable? Okay. So this would then be reduction, right? Less receivable. Less receivable. Okay. So this is no effect. This is no effect. All right. Okay. Now let's help me out on this. If I get money, would that be debit to cash or credit to cash? I get money. So if I get money, would that be debit or credit to cash? Okay, so it's going to be debit to cash, right? Debit to cash. Okay, thank you. How about the reduction in the receivable? If I have less receivable, should I record debit to the receivable or credit to the receivable? Debit to the receivable or credit to the receivable? All right, very good. Okay, very good ค่ะ So over here, I have already analyzed this together with you, and we have already talked about debit and credit. So let me take this analysis and then record the transaction over here. So for transaction number 7, it's a debit to the accounts payable and then credit to cash. This is when you pay for the accounts payable. And then for the transaction number 8, you get money out of the accounts receivable. So it's going to be debit to cash and credit to the accounts receivable. So could you please take the note? And then after that, I will update the cash balance and the related accounts together with you. All right, so hope that you finish up with the note here, Naka. So let me update the cash balance. So for the cash balance, everyone, Naka, you have the collection for 250 and you have the payment for 100,000. All right, so could you please update the cash balance? And also over here, Naka, also over here, you have the update for the accounts receivable as well. Okay. So everyone please update the cash balance and also update the receivable balance. Update the cash balance and also update the receivable balance. When you are done, you let me know, Naka, so that I can show you the updates for the accounts payable, all right? Okay, if you finish with this, Naka, let me show you the updates for the accounts payable. Originally, right, you have 250, right, in the accounts payable, but now you pay 100,000. So obviously you have less of the accounts payable. So could you please update the balance here? All right, finish up, Becca, with the note. Okay, so I hope that you finish up with the notes here already. So for today, as I said, I will talk about 8 transactions, and now I have already completed the analysis on the 8 transactions, and I have already recorded all the transactions and post the impact to the T account, right? So actually, we have not done with the whole example just yet. We still have more to go, but that will be for next class. Towards the end of the session, let me address some of the issues with you. Right? What I would like you to, I would ask you for the promise that you would work in the quiz individually, right? I know that I would not be able to control, right, if you collaborate with friends, but I want you to know that collaboration in helping out each other, is good. But if you collaborate in the quiz that I instruct you not to do, then that is considered cheating, right? And I don't want you to have that, cheating behavior in yourself. All right. So I promise, and let me give you the promise first, and then I'll ask you for the promise back. Let me give you a promise that I will try my best to make sure that you all understand the subject matter, right? I will do my best to teach you, right, the things that you need to know in order for you to proceed to some other, higher courses. And hopefully things I talk about in this course will be beneficial to you in your future career, right? So that would be the promise that I give you. And I will be kind, right? I will be nice. I will be, kind to you, right? If you promise that you will work on the quiz yourself, because the thing is, what is the purpose of the quiz? The purpose of the quiz is to give you the idea of what's important in that particular session, right? So it's okay to be wrong. If it's wrong, it means that for that particular point, you don't understand just yet, right? So you have to study more or you have to ask questions, right? And hopefully by doing or working on the quiz, it will give you some ideas of what will appear in the exam, right? So basically you look at the way that I give you the information, you look at the way that I ask you questions. And that is the better way to prepare yourself for the exam, right? So would you be able to give promise to me that you will be honest? Cheating or not, it's only you who know, right? So do you have, may I have the promise to from you that you will be honest, you will be good, and then you will try your best on the quiz, and then later on at the end of the session, at the end of the course, I would of course drop out some of the lowest ones for you and make sure that you have a solid, scores to proceed to the exams. So do you mind give me promise on that? Thank you. That would mean a lot to me. Okay, that means a lot. That's mean a lot. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So for that Pinky promise, Pinky promise, do you mind turn on your camera and then we have promise here, เปิดกล้องนะ you turn on your camera and then give me that Pinky promise. Okay, and then we'll capture the screen, and then that's evidence for the promise that we have in this course. Be nice, be truthful, and I'm sure that I will give you proper rewards. I promise that. Pinky, Pinky swear. Jessica, do I still have you? I want to see you because I see all others already. I see RC, I see Dylan, I see Hella already, but I haven't seen you just yet. So which one is you? Jessica? Which one is you? Do we have Jessica still? Hello, which one is Jessica? You raise your hand, please. Jessica? Do you still have, are you still here, Jessica? Everyone Pinky swear. All right, 1, 2, 3. One more time. This is the Pinky swear. One more time. All right. So I have now your promise. I have now your promise, which you are straightforward, and then truthful to yourself and to me, and also to your friends. Be fair to everyone. If you cannot do it, let me know. And then if you said, oh, Ajahn, I cannot be truthful, so for that, I might discontinue the quiz and then take all the scores to the midterm and final exams if you like to. I can make the adjustments. So if the class agree that there should be no quizzes, no more, then I can take the scores, added that to the midterm and final exam. Okay? So I'll let you think about it, and then I'll ask you again next time. All right. Now, as I have already mentioned at the beginning of the class, today is Chinese New Year. For those of you who are exchange students, so it's a tradition for Chinese New Year that the elder will give some kind of presents to the younger, right? So that's a tradition for Chinese New Year. I ask you to participate by putting the comments here, and then you all responded really well, right? So the part that you have been waiting for is it's called like that year, right? It's like ang pao, right? So it's called that year or ang pao, right? So it's a little present from the older, right, to the younger. So today, since you are really nice and you are really good student, so attentive to classes, and I'm impressed with the attendance participations that you put in. So today, you all get 20 points for this quiz, meaning you don't have to take the quiz, but you get 20 points for all of you, for your participation. So today you get 20 points for the participation. So hope that you like that, right? Okay, so that's the ang pao, right? So it's a Chinese New Year, so I hope that you all have a good luck, and then good life, good health, and hope that you have all the best in everything. So everyone, good luck to you, and happy Chinese New Year. So have a nice day, and then I'll see you next week, and then I'll ask you again whether you still want to take the quiz or you want to lump it up to the midterm and final exam. So bye bye นะคะเด็กๆ สวัสดีค่ะ
ขอบคุณนะคะอาจารย์
สวัสดีค่ะ